hottest seat
in college football,
according to Brandon Marcello, and the man also coaches in the Southeastern Conference.
I still think Billy Napier's right there.
He says no on Billy Napier. It is Hugh Freeze of Auburn. And here is what Brandon writes. Auburn is legitimately approaching an inflection point that could define how its athletics department approaches the next decade.
Jeez.
The Iron Bowl is ripe for a power shift for the first time since Nick Saban arrived at Alabama in 2007. And basically he goes on to say, I'll let you go read it at cbssports.com. He explains how now is the time for Hugh Freeze, and if he doesn't get it done in some forward momentum this year, that the powers that be at Auburn, he believes, would be willing to make a move to go spend big on bringing in somebody else who could fill the void that's left, the vacuum left by Nick Saban.
So Hugh Freeze's buyout is $20 million, and the reason we said yesterday that it is an Auburn-friendly buyout that Hugh Freeze agreed to, by the way, Jimmy Sexton, his agent, agreed to, but I think Hugh had to do that because this was his second chance at the SEC coaching, and you just never knew if you were going to get another opportunity if you're Hugh Freeze. So Auburn kind of held the cards in the buyouts situation there. $20 million is not crazy this day and age, but what makes it Auburn friendly is that it's payable monthly. Now, Auburn could choose to probably reduce it into a one-time payout if they wanted to, but they set it up this way knowing that if we have to fire this guy for whatever reason, we can pay it out monthly, and that's far easier to absorb.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if you guys are the same way, but if you're offered 0% interest on monthly payments, you take the 0% interest monthly payments, don't you?
Yeah, we were just talking about that before the show. Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's what
you
you
use
take.
their money, not yours.
That's right. I'm not going to use my money. I'm going to use their money. So, I was just thinking about it the other day. My youngest daughter has to get braces, and they sit you down, and they're like, if you pay by cash, it's this. If you pay by card, it's this, or zero interest monthly payments. And I'm like, well, if it's truly zero interest, and you're using your money, not mine, I might consider that one, right? Auburn's got the 0% monthly interest buyout. $20 million, paid monthly. That's easy to swallow. So buyout is not going to be an issue here.
So what has to happen? First of all, some positives. He's back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes, and he's had a good portal here. They've spent a lot of money in the portal, big receiver coming in, big quarterback coming in. So you've got the fact that he's had back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes. That's positive. And here's another big positive for him this year. Probably needs to win the Iron Bowl. Probably needs to beat Kalen DeVore. And where is it this year? Said Jordan Hare Stadium.
Yeah, well, and look, if you just look at pure production coming back on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball, they're a top 20 roster with what they're returning. And the one guy that's not returning is what everybody really wants to fix at quarterback. Now, this is one of the reasons that I was arguing Auburn to the bottom half of the SEC conference, because over the last 4 years, they've only got 10 conference wins. I mean, they're averaging 2.5 conference wins per year over a 4-year or full recruiting cycle period. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
It's not impressive, and 4 consecutive losing years too.
Yeah, and so you got the recruiting talent you've been killing right now, top 10. You've got the Iron Bowl at home. I mean, you always have Georgia and Alabama. They're your rivals, so your schedule is always going to be a certain matter of difficulty. This seems to be a year, and Brandon writes in the story, it doesn't need to be a 6 or 7 win year. It needs to be 8, 9, 10 win year.
Oh, look, they're double-digit favorites in every one of their out-of-conference games except the opener, Baylor. And if they can beat Baylor, they're going to have 4 wins right there, because they're going to obviously beat Ball State, South Alabama, and Mercer. But you got to win that Baylor game. I can't overstate how important that game is.
I cannot believe. I mean, I'm with you. It's so important, but I can't believe that Auburn-Baylor is going to be a bellwether game like that for both coaches.
Well, because
the loser in that game is fighting an uphill battle the rest of the year.
Well, you lose that game. Let's just give you Ball State and South Alabama. So you're 2-1 heading to Norman. And here is your gauntlet. You've got at Oklahoma, at A&M, Georgia, Missouri, at Arkansas before you host Kentucky and go to Vanderbilt. So, realistically, I mean, do you guys think there's any way Auburn goes 2-0 against Oklahoma and A&M on the road?
I mean, it would be extremely difficult to do.
I would say it's possible.
Possible. Oklahoma's going to be improved. I don't know if A&M's going to be improved. I do think Oklahoma will be with John Mateer.
But then you would, at best case, they split with Georgia and Missouri. I know those games are at home. But I'm just saying, all of a sudden, if you lose to Baylor, if we give splits on the road between Oklahoma and A&M and home against Georgia and Missouri, you've got 3 losses, and you're just scratching October.
Yeah.
Well, and again, you go back to the Iron Bowl. You mentioned that, and at some point,
and there's the schedule. Yeah. Scotty's pulled it for us.
It's as we talk about with Auburn every year, rarely do we say, God, Auburn's got an easy schedule, favorable schedule. I don't know why it is, but Auburn, it seems like, ends up with a difficult schedule a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
that one is not easy.
November is the favorable, but you've got to go to Vanderbilt, who, by the way, returns, I think, the most production in the SEC.
But that doesn't scare me, first off. Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you saw this.
And I don't
beloved tie.
Did you see some of Vanderbilt's wins this year?
Yeah, I did. They beat Alabama. I'm just saying, I look at that schedule. I mean, it's got Georgia and Alabama on it, so that makes it tough. But that's not a tough schedule.
You don't think it's a tough schedule?
No.
At Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, playing host to Georgia.
Yeah.
Playing host to Alabama.
Give me Alabama's schedule.
Oh, here we go.
You don't think Alabama's schedule is tougher?
Yeah, but I mean, Auburn's still going to be underdogs in 5 games.
I mean, are you grading toughness of schedule because of talent on the team? Like you think it? I mean,
well, I mean that's the way you got to kind of do it.
I mean, Alabama's schedule is tougher. I mean, at Florida State.
Auburn's got a tougher game at Baylor than Alabama does at Florida State.
You don't know that.
Jim, did you watch Florida State last year?
Well, you're not playing last year, Brand. We're playing 2025.
Well, I mean, they were.
Do I need to buy you a calendar?
I need to buy you cable, apparently, Jim. No, they were historically bad.
They've got a portal.
Year.
They brought in a team.
Alabama,
a whole new team.
I think it is a slam dunk. The out-of-conference is more difficult because you have Wisconsin and Florida State.
Oh, by the way, they also do play Georgia, too, on the road, not at home.
So they get Vandy at home, though. They don't have to go to Nashville again.
They play Tennessee. They're on the road at everybody's darling South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma's on there.
I'm not saying Alabama's got an easy schedule.
At Auburn.
I never said that.
It's tougher than Auburn's.
Yeah.
So what does Hugh have to do to make the fan base happy? I mean, you got to start with a winning year.
Yeah, when you talk hot seat, I mean, let's say, what does he have to do to get fired?
I mean, if they go 5-7 again, look, and I like Hugh a lot.
That's a given.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to be out at that point.
Well, I mean, I was about to bring up the Iron Bowl before he got on the schedule thing. I mean, you have not won that game since 2019. I mean, those start to stack up and get frustrating to fans.
I think he's got to do what Billy Napier, who was on this hot seat last year, did, and that is to go 4-4 in conference and 8-5 overall. I think 8 wins is that number. Now, what you don't want to do is get blown out against Georgia, Alabama, and pick your other 2.
Yep. Brandon seems to think another 6 or 7 win season would not be good for you. He thinks 8 is the number.
Yeah, look, and I mean, I think it's tough to be patient in today's college football when you see guys in year 1 and year 2 make, big leaps and the amount of money these guys are getting paid. But if you're talking about at this point now, it'd be 3 full years and you don't have a winning season?
Yeah, just do you think at some point somebody has ridden in on a yellow horse or with a yellow label on it and said, hey, it's got to be 8. We need 8 wins this year. Is there somebody's had a conversation with him? Does he know there's, has somebody said there's a number?
Hugh's been in football long enough to know you can't lose, what would that now be, the 6th consecutive game to Alabama? 20, 21, 22, 23, 24,
He can't be responsible
25.
for the ones he didn't coach in, though.
But it's still the 6th consecutive, and he's coached in, that will be 3 consecutive for him.
Yeah.
He'll have half of them. I mean, he's smart enough to know you can't do that. He's smart enough to know you can't lose to Vanderbilt. Again, Vanderbilt beat you in your stadium. To Lance's point, if you go lose that game in Nashville, back-to-back losses to Vanderbilt, that's probably enough to get you fired by itself. So he's smart enough to know that. I mean, I'm just making a list of things that Hugh Freeze would be smart enough to know you can't do, Jim. He's smart enough to know you can't win 7 games this year and be 100% safe. I mean, I think he's got to know last year, rather than go to the portal and get a Jackson Arnold type quarterback, I stuck with Payton Thorne, and it did not work. So now I went and got Jackson Arnold, and if he doesn't work, I've now told my boosters I can't evaluate the guy I had, and I can't evaluate the guy in the portal. So if you're a booster, what do you do with that? Okay, you evaluated the quarterback situation and said, I think Payton can do it for us. He didn't. So then you go to the portal and you miss on Jackson Arnold. So how what am I supposed to do there?
That's when it becomes a big problem. The only thing better than an 11-0 Iron Bowl, Auburn 6-5, Alabama 8-3. I mean, just imagine the pressure, because then if Hugh was to drop that again, they dropped to 6-6. If Kalen DeBoer was to lose 4 games in back-to-back seasons. And with these schedules, I mean, you can kind of see it.
Truthfully, 11-0, 11-0 would be a lot more fun.
Well, I
than
agree.
8-3, 6-5.
That's what I'm saying. The only
it's a much
thing,
better game.
Yeah, the next best thing is what I should say to 11-0, 11-0.
Go read all of Brandon Marcello's new mailbag. He's cranked up a mailbag now at CBSSports.com. I always love the mailbag articles or shows or things like that.
Marcello did this, though. He told us last year he was going on and setting up his work because he told us last year that year 3 was going to be the big year for Auburn, knowing that they would disappoint a little bit, and then he would be able to come back and roll this piece out.
Yeah, called a shot, didn't he?
Well, he did say they were aiming at year 3 in NIL, and you look at what Auburn did in the NIL, and went and got 2 quarterbacks out of the portal. They didn't just get 1; they got 2 out of the portal, and some of who was it? Did we have somebody the other day that said Jackson Arnold was the best portal quarterback move of anybody in college football? Did we see that the other day?
I have
It
not
was
seen that.
CBSSports.com, Tom Fornelli.
He said Jackson Arnold was the best.
Yeah.
Because I thought most said Carson Beck, John Mateer. Like, I haven't seen Jackson
He
Arnold.
mentioned Beck and Mateer, but he thinks Jackson Arnold was the best fit out of the portal.